All right, how's everybody doing? Powerful film, right? Deep and powerful. So we have Brother Kelvin, Brother Ramos, and of course, Brother Ray, the director of this film. Let's have them come on out so you can meet them and celebrate them. Right? Give it up for them. Yeah, extremely powerful. My name is Michael. Extremely powerful, sir. Extremely powerful. I was just telling you in the back, it's so rare to see the humanity of black and brown people presented as a matter of fact, as the beginning predicate for so much that we see unfolding cinematically. The pacing of the editing, taking the time with the story, the beautiful architecture of black and brown masculinity and black and brown female identity, and in a complicated fashion. And of course, the story is ripped from the headlines that we see confronting us every day. So I don't need to ask you what your motivation was in doing it, but tell us about your approach. Because I think in so many of these movies, we don't see the intimacy of black and brown people preserved in their domestic space. Because on the one hand, you know, labor is leveraged in behalf of one family, the cop, Brother John David Washington there. His family is supported by the same energy that undercuts the other families, right? So tell us about the personal and intimate approach, because they're parallel stories, but they're not equivalent. And it's a brilliant job of balancing them. So tell us about the approach of dealing with this huge, mammoth, monumental issue for our country right now, especially for people of color, and the approach of dealing with the consequences of this one trauma, the death that then unites these three families.
I'll rewind. In 2015, I made a short film called Stop. It was dealing with stop and frisk in New York City. A young African-American kid walking home from practice gets stopped and frisked by the police. I made the short for like $500. I cast a friend of mine who's a New York City police officer. We grew up together in Staten Island. He's a friend. He's a cop in my film, and and an actor. So he, fast forward, we get that short into Sundance, and it's amazing, right? We go and we celebrate this short. It's 2:00 in the morning after our premiere, and we just start talking about the Eric Garner case in Staten Island. We're both from Staten Island. I used to deliver pizza in that neighborhood, and one thing kind of led to another. We saw two totally different things on the tape. And here's somebody, he's a friend. He's somebody I've known my whole life, and he was presenting another side that I hadn't heard that close before. And it made me feel very uncomfortable, as it made him uncomfortable. I'm looking at the tape and I see a guy that should be alive. And he was just like, Ray, he's resisting arrest, and you don't understand what it's like being a police officer. What ended up becoming the dinner scene in the film.
Right.
I had that real conversation. And again, I grew up in Staten Island around a lot of police officers. They're my friends. We grew up together. We play high school football together. If you don't know Staten Island, it's a very blue-collar place to grow up. It's, firemen, police officers, and these are people that I know. Anyway, that conversation sat with me for 6 months. I couldn't put it down. And what I realized I didn't have in my short film was perspective. I didn't have that. And so that's how the triptych structure was really born, was like, okay, but I only had two. I only had two. I had the cop, and then I had me, how I felt about it. And I thought, well, two is like a circle. I need something to kind of break it out. I need some hope at the end. I need something to kind of take it out of that. And so that's how the triptych structure was born. Shout out to Mel, who plays Big D here. I mean, he's looking at him right here. When I met Mel, it was funny. We were at a community police event, and I was like, this huge dude comes in. I was like, I couldn't take my eyes off him. That's how I noticed him in the crowd. But but a lot of his real life is in that character. He sells stuff on the street and that kind of thing, and he just had that natural flow. Anyway, that goes to say, this is a very personal story for me. My father worked for the Department of Investigation in New York. A black man, but had a gun and a shield. He wasn't in a uniform, but he had this thing. So I grappled with this my whole life. A lot of Kelvin's characters born, had 2 major league tryouts. I didn't make it, I failed. So now I'm, kind of bringing that into the forefront. But how we get to these events, I kept thinking about the videotape. I kept thinking about who are the people that videotape these things, and where are they? You know, whether it was the woman that who videotaped Philando Castile,
Right.
and you have that moment with the baby screaming in the back seat, and she's, you know, watching her boyfriend die.
Right.
Like, where are they today? We lose sight of those folks. And, you know, when I was thinking about Manny's character, the guy from Staten Island who's now sitting in a Vegas prison, you know, we remember Eric Garner, but we forget about those other folks.
Right.
And so I took that approach to the film in the sense that I want to remember the folks that we forget about.
That's right.
And so that intimacy came from wanting to shed light on the things that we don't see. You know, we could see the killing by turning on the television. So there, you know, we made a very specific choice to leave that out, you know, and focus on the lives of folks that we wouldn't typically get an opportunity to see. And these guys here were able to help me realize that vision. I mean, obviously, you know, I mean, give it up for them for their just unbelievable talents. I'll let them speak to that, but you know, Anthony is a Puerto Rican from Bushwick. Like, a lot of this is his own personal dealings with this.
Right, right.
So anyway.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful. So let's turn to them, and then I want to come back to you to ask. You know, in playing these characters for both Anthony and Kelvin, obviously, as young men of color, you see the kind of everyday impact. Because I think the brilliance of the film is to show the aftermath, the impact after the trauma itself, the grief, the loss, the pain, the suffering, and literally the invisibility, as you said. Because isn't it ironic that the very optic nerve that sees also obscures, and you see based upon where you are. So as these as young actors, what did you do to, you know, your life experience probably was the preparation for this. You ain't got to study hard, right, to see what's going on. But in terms of the complicated, you know, portrait that this film renders, how did you prepare for playing a character, you know, first that took a risk? Both of you take risks, right? You in terms of your professional career and getting something that black men don't, you know, very, very rarely get, a break from the cops when they didn't see the drugs, right? I mean, that's that risk, that charity, that luck, that chance that plays a role in our destinies. But, you know, in terms of the sacrifice both of you made, sacrifice of your own livelihood as a young man with a family and your livelihood as a professional who's looking for a break. Tell us about what motivation, what you brought to the film that showed us what you presented.
Well, thank y'all for seeing our movie. Appreciate that. We a lot of love went into this movie and heart, and yeah, this story is personal for me. I mean, I grew up in the projects in Bushwick. I've been handcuffed before, and I've been pinned against the wall for dumb things. You know, things we don't have to really get into, things we don't really got time to talk about. But all that to say is that, you know, this movie meant a lot to me. I read it, and I think the thing that hit me the most was, like, I know that guy. I know Manny. You know, I know John David. I know Dennis. That's my cousin David. You know, you know, Manny reminds me of myself a lot. You know, I think, you know, that I know, you know, I know Zyric, and these guys are just so relatable, and I think you can never really put yourself in the situation of someone who goes through what Manny went through after seeing that, unless you went through that. But you can definitely try, and you know, I mean, unfortunately, a family friend of mine was shot and killed by the police, and it was my mom's. You know, and his mother was one of my mom's closest friends at work. And he was going to get married the next day. And my mom's went to the funeral. And I was too young at the time to to go to the wedding, and then I was too young to really understand what. I mean, I wasn't too young to understand what was going on, but I couldn't really comprehend what was going on. But I saw what his mom was going through, and I read the script, and I was like, yo, there are too many parallels to my life in this script, and like. I didn't care what other movie came along. I was like, yo, whatever I got to do to be in this. I mean, I Skyped Ray. I got like the biggest blockbuster movie. Like, I mean, the most money I would have. They offered me so much money. And I said to him, I Skyped him. And I said, bro, I'm ready to turn this movie down if you tell me we can't work the dates out. And thank God they both worked out.
I was like, don't do that. We didn't have the finances. Don't. Your mom's got to eat. We gotta work this out. It worked out.
Right, brother Kelvin.
For me, it was really something. I mean, I can't really put myself in Zarek's shoes, but I did have a lot of parallels to my own life. I always looked at it as like Zarek's actually in a place of privilege, and he's in the minority. He goes to this amazing private school on scholarship. He has this amazing talent as a baseball player. He's going to get a scholarship. People like him, and he's the hope of his community. That's not often that happens in everyone's community, and I kind of saw that in myself. I was like, you know, my parents were fortunate enough to send me to a private school, and I got a lot of opportunity, and I'm here right now with these guys, and I'm 24, you know? So it's like I saw the burden of trying to give my parents back what they gave me, and I saw this conflict of feeling this generational gap of that they've worked so hard to give me all these things and have this opportunity, and what do I do with it? What am I gonna do with it? I'm gonna be an artist. I'm gonna make movies about activism and stuff like that. And Zarek is like, oh, I'm gonna protest. You know, it's like, how do I balance that? And what am I losing? And am I making them proud? You know, that line my dad says is, this is your ticket out. This is a ticket, and it's not just about me. It becomes about the whole family. It becomes about what we've worked towards as a family name. Right. Harrison. What's Zarek's last name? Williams? Morris. No. Prepared.
Williams?
Yeah, Williams. Jackson? Gave him a generic black name. But you know, I saw that in him, and it became very apparent to me as to I see this kid's conflict and I see this kid's dilemma, and it's hard. It's hard to make those decisions, but we have to come of age and make decisions as a man.
No doubt about it. I got Dr. James Peterson in the audience. I got to shout him out. I want him to come up right quick because just to engage you, he writes about literature and film and so on, and black masculinity, brown masculinity is at play in this film. And I think in a very serious way, you do something important. Is Dr. Peterson back there? Come on up, Doc. I mean, you know. So, and I know, you know, he writes a lot about hip hop. Y'all, you know, read his books, and all right, no doubt. So, I just want to, you know, tag team a little bit your response, and then ask Brother Ray a question.
Sure. Love the film. It's extremely powerful. I want to go back to the three-part approach piece because the critics are going to say to you, I'm preparing you for what the critics are going to say. The critics are going to say, this film doesn't know what it wants to be, right? This film has, you know, doesn't know what it wants to be, which it is, because folks who've been paying attention to cinema and to these issues around Black Lives Matter will tell you that this is the kind of film for me that I didn't expect to see for a long time, right? A film that really tried to capture the broad range complexities of it. But I wonder, like, how you think it's going to be received, right? Not that you should care about that, right? You got to go on to the next project, but you got to make more films. And what they're going to say is it doesn't know what it wants to be. Now, I have a response I would love to give to those critics, and maybe I will when I respond to them, but I wonder how you,
Give us your response first.
films that are about deconstructing systems, right? For the most part of a long history have been about like a single charismatic hero, right? And a lot of moviegoers, when they come to movies, they want to see this single charismatic hero, usually male, go through the whole thing, like save the cat, and then it ends. So the way your film works is you buy into three different heroes. And I think successfully, you know, that's tied together. But I think it's a little bit ahead of its time, especially for critics. Maybe not so much for movie audiences, but for critics who are going to say this film doesn't know what it wants. So my response is the film is doing exactly what it needs to do for the complexity of the situation it's trying to address. But who cares what I want to know what you think about it.
I mean, you know, we've been fortunate, blessed with the critics so far. We're a New York Critics Pick this week, so we're feeling good. Rolling Stones, 4 stars. We're doing all right. The critics are getting it. They understand it. We won special jury prize at Sundance. Like somehow they're getting it. They're understanding it. And I think it's because people are understanding it and they're getting it. And we presented the film without any easy answer because I don't think this film is an easy answer. I don't think it's like we can tie it in a bow. That's not how these things are solved. It's about leaving that lingering feeling, missing Manny, you know?
Right.
I thought about Game of Thrones. Can I kill Ned Stark? It's tough, you know what I mean? Like, but like, I remember that. I remember like, oh my God, when Ned Stark died in Game of Thrones, like I've watched 7 more seasons because of that. Right. You know what I mean? And I still think about him at the end of the day. If you haven't seen it, sorry about the spoilers. But like, Manny's character, it's so much closer to the truth of how those events happen. And I didn't want to see another brown man in prison. We've seen that already. I didn't want to see him go there.
Yeah.
Your mind can go there if you want to. So I made a deliberate choice to not show you where he goes because a lot of times we don't know. Where's the guy who videotaped Eric Garner? He's sitting in a Vegas prison. Where's the guy who videotaped Walter Scott?
Right.
You know, where are these folks?
That's right.
And so I thought if I have you miss him, then I've actually done my job. And that was my approach to making the movie.
Let me ask you, we have in the audience too, Susan Taylor, who is the National, CARES mentoring director, the former editor-in-chief of Essence Magazine, Queen of Black America. She's here, and it reminded me in this film of the beauty of elders giving knowledge, transmitting value, and trying to engage and encourage without being imperious, without being, able to stop the process by which these young people come to maturity, right? They're complicated issues, they're complicated questions, and I thought it was a beautiful element there to show the generations, not just the old typical, oh, stop that damn mumble rap, although stop that damn mumble rap. But what's interesting is that you give a sense of the humanity, and I just want to stress that. I can't stress that enough, to see the profound humanity of these people, the choices they make, generations struggling with their own choices and fearful for the limits of others, and you have honest conversation in there between the generations and between the genders. To have the black woman at that table make that remark, right? Look at me when I talk to you. Right, that's little Kavanaugh. I'm just sorry. I got to get into the moment with the Kavanaugh, with those 2 sisters at the elevator holding Jeff Flake accountable for this black. Y'all didn't see that? Is it black people out here? Did I miss it? All right, did y'all miss it? Well, say amen. All right, give me some love up in here. All right. So my point is, I'm just used to call and response. I'm sorry. The intimate expression of black reciprocity and brown affirmation is what I. But what's interesting is that you were able to have that dialogue come from that woman as a seat of authority, which is important, and the complicated conversation that black people who are police people are human as well, and they make choices and they make sacrifices, but they also sacrifice to a system that has undercut them at the same time. Tell us about the open-ended character of the film. You don't give us any easy answers. You don't resolve it for us, and you don't. You place the value on life across the board, but it's up to us to choose. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've struggled with this. It's like you see the tapes, or you see, issues on TV, and it's like, well, what do I do? Mm-hmm. That's it happened in North Carolina.
Right.
Like, what do I do? Cool. I got my family. Like, you watch it, and it's painful, and then you just go back to like your life.
Right.
And I just thought, well, I can't ignore that these things are happening around me, but I don't know how to use, I don't have like a platform. Like, who do I tell? Who do I call? What do I do? We're not protesting in the same way that we do. We have Twitter and Facebook and social. Like, what is the response now? Mm-hmm. And of course, I'm not an athlete, but when you see, the Colin Kaepernicks of the world,
right,
using their platform. So I'm like, I'm a filmmaker. I can use this platform to call attention to things that are happening that are important to me. Mm-hmm. And again, not leaving it with a sort of tied in a bow, I think lends itself to more folks walking out of the theater feeling like I want to do something. That was the hope of the film. And however small that is, however small of a thing that you can do is what I wanted to leave it with. It's open-ended, but for you, it could be use your platform. How many followers do you have?
Right.
How many folks can you reach and talk about the things that you want to talk about?
That's right.
And so I'm just using my voice and through channeling through these brilliant actors
Yes.
to say, these are the things that we care about. And now it's up to you to help us see it through.
Let me very quickly, I know we got to end here. For these two young gentlemen with enormous talent, is film a particular vocabulary that reaches out? I mentioned mumble rap. We know hip hop is huge, but hip hop has many iterations, but it's not exclusive. It's not the only thing. But for your generation, is the cinematic language one that is especially captivating, that allows you to use your art in a way that's not didactic? Because you're not trying to, you're teaching us without making us feel we're being taught. We're learning because we're observing, and we're put right there, participant observation, right? Participant observer. But for you young men, is a film, is the cinematic language one that reaches people in ways that other maybe art forms are not able to immediately reach out and do? Do you think about that? Or not?
I mean, I think so. I've always been more of a visual learner, and like seeing film. I mean, I grew up playing music. I'm from New Orleans. My parents are musicians. Music is amazing. Anthony's a fantastic musician, But
That's kind.
Huh?
Thank you.
Yeah, you are. But I always feel like seeing myself or seeing people like me and all, the things that we talk about all the time is really good for us.
Okay.
It's visual and audio, like learning at the same time.
Beautiful.
I love music videos, man, because you can, you hear a song you love, but then it's another thing to watch the story happen while the song's going on. I mean, look, Michael Jackson made some of the most beautiful music videos of all time. Not because the songs are hits, no doubt, but he never wasted an ounce of film on any of those videos. They were movies, mini movies. Bad is my favorite video.
Yeah.
You know?
That's great. I want to see that video for Ben with the big rat. Okay. Anyway, let's give it up for Brother Kelvin, for Brother Anthony, and for Brother Ray for an extraordinary film that needs to be seen widely. Go out and tweet about it, Facebook about it, social media about it. Give it up for these three brilliant brothers.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for coming.